I'm a surgeon, you know. And one day, Maria, an 18-year-old woman from Mexico, came to see me about a very difficult medical situation. Maria was born with a rare liver disease that caused her to have intermittent massive GI bleeds. Each episode was life-threatening. She came to see me at the time. I was at the University of Arizona, and I knew a lot about her disease. But she had seen a lot of doctors, and I was her last option. You see, Maria came from a very poor family in Mexico. She had no way to pay for care in Arizona, and there was no one in her city, Hermosillo, who was experienced in the surgical procedure she needed. I knew the surgery quite well. I certainly wanted to help her immediately. That's what we do. That's what we do at this institution. But I would have to do the surgery in Hermosillo, 250 miles south of the US border. A Hispanic colleague of mine knew Hermosillo very well and was able to arrange an OR with a large general hospital there. When the time came, I got my team together. We got the special instruments together. We drove 5 long hours in the Sonoran Desert. Finally, we arrived in Hermosillo. It was 105 degrees and very sticky. The next morning, we got to work. The procedure involved finding 2 very fragile veins deep in the abdomen, clamping them, sewing them together, and that was the solution to her problem. And these very delicate veins, once you had sewn them together, you would take the clamps off, you would watch for bleeding, you would fix it, and that's it. Sounds easy, doesn't it? You're finished, right. We were an experienced team. We had prepared. We found these hard-to-find veins after several hours. We sewed them together. It went very well. And then we removed the clamps. Boom, the lights went out. We were in the OR with no lights, with some veins we had just sewn together. There was a power failure. It was pitch black in the operating room. And remember, the next step is to fix the bleeding. In those moments, I could hear only 2 things. One, the sound of Maria being ventilated by hand by the anesthesiologist, keeping her alive, and the ticking of the clock on the wall. It was the worst possible situation at the worst possible time. High stakes, you bet. I think every one of you in this room knows that feeling. You're suddenly faced with some impossible situation. Something critical. It didn't go as planned. You've been there. That's what the last 6 months of this country has felt like to me. An impossible situation for us. High stakes. Look at what's happening around us. NIH grants simply not being reviewed or being canceled. The rule of law being challenged. Student support systems coming under fire. Financial aid, international student visas, patient services and health insurance, Medicaid. On top of that, state budget cuts. All at the same time. Each one of these challenges would have limited our capacity to achieve our mission, to improve the human condition. That's what we do here. When you combine them all at once, where does all this lead? It feels like the lights have gone out. Feels like I'm back in that operating room in Hermosillo, in the dark at a very critical time, not knowing where important things stand, unable to find out where they stand until the light returns. So what happened next in Hermosillo? Well, when the power went out, my instincts kicked in. Where are my priorities? And you know them. Keep Maria alive. My first priority was bleeding. The clamps had already come off. They were gone. I had to guess in the dark where the suture line was. I had to put my finger on the suit where I thought it was. I had to put my finger there and hold gentle pressure, hoping to stop any bleeding, but at the same time, not injuring these very delicate veins. My second priority was Maria. I had to place trust in her anesthesiologist, to trust that he would maintain her vital signs and continue to hand ventilate her. My third priority was the team around me. I had to trust my team to do their jobs, to rely on their experience, to focus on what they could control, not to panic. And please, someone find me a flashlight, quick. Meanwhile, the clock on the wall kept ticking. Times like this should force you to stop and think, to take stock of a situation. How did this happen to Maria in the bloom of her life? Because of my choices, her life was now in danger, all because of a power failure. Am I causing harm? I can't see where my finger is. Am I slowing the bleeding, or am I making it worse? Why didn't I foresee the possibility of a power failure? I was so accustomed to working in an operating room where it worked, and it worked seamlessly, and it worked one way. I knew how to work in that system. I should have planned for other possibilities and developed contingencies. But still, the darkness continued, and still the clock kept ticking in that operating room. And the last 6 months have forced me to take stock, to ask questions similar to those questions I asked in the operating room in Hermosillo. How did we get to this place? Maybe UMB is in the dark, but it's not in the dark for everything. And I see every one of you focused on your task at hand, hard at work. It's what you always do. You're controlling the controllable, and you're not being distracted by the noise in the background. We all see higher education being challenged. You know, executive orders, funds being frozen, court decisions. How do we respond to these challenges? What's best for UMB? How do we act responsibly? Where does a president turn for advice like this? Well, I turn to 3 places for sure, and others. I certainly turn to our vice presidents and deans sitting behind me, and every one of these individuals has had to deal with challenges, and I assure you has arisen to the occasion. And so I thank all of you for those efforts. I also turn to an advisory task force. We stood this up in January and put together over 60 experienced experts across UMB. They have kept us current, up to date on the biggest issues, new federal policies, orders, to the smallest of issues that affect 1 or 2 students. They are all important, and they have advised this university well. Priceless. That's what I call that kind of advice. But I've also turned to you, the faculty. And it's faculty, senators, postdocs, students, staff. Dr. Ward and I have met with over 150 of you in the past several months. I asked each person in that session, put on my president's hat. Here it is, okay? And tell me what to prioritize. What does UMB need the most? What's on your mind? I heard a lot about education. I heard about the rule of law from the lawyers. I heard about health care. I heard about social justice from the social workers. There were stories of personal hardship. One story was very meaningful to me. A junior faculty member had just chosen to come to UMB because it's a premier university in his field. In fact, he had just gotten the first good score on a grant. He now has a family, a mortgage, and even a dog. Now he's wondering, do I have a future in Maryland? Or even let alone, do I have a career in science? He wanted to know how we're going to protect early career faculty. Very important question, and faculty members like him are our future, our seed corn. I can assure you, he can hear the clock ticking. What's our plan? Well, back in the operating room in Hermosillo, 10 minutes later, suddenly a small flashlight appeared, and I had light again. Eureka! I could see the veins. No bleeding. The surgical field was dry. The veins had not been injured. I had guessed correctly with my finger and applied just enough pressure to get just the right spot dry. I had avoided a catastrophe. I can tell you, I took a deep breath after that. And then, in the light of that tiny flashlight, I closed and finished. Maria bounced back very quickly. The next morning was a new day for her. She went home with her family. They do that right after surgery in Mexico, and it's a witness to her youth to good surgery and the tradition of how they care for patients there. 5 years afterwards, after her surgery, I saw her. She was thriving with no bleeding. She was a new person. She had hope for the future. So what I see here at UMB gives me hope for the future too. I see full classes. I see clinical services in medicine, dentistry, nursing, and pharmacy that are having impact and are robust. I see impact from our School of Law and School of Social Work in our community and with their clients. University of Maryland Medical Center and medical system are in sync with us. Research and scholarly productivity are alive in spite of the many uncertainties at the federal level. We are going about our work regardless of that uncertainty. We have the right team here. We are made of the right stuff here. And we are doing things that matter. Things that matter like health, life, the law, social well-being, being an anchor institution in this community and our commitment to the community. They all matter. But just as Maria needed me to be disciplined and establish clear priorities, we must do the same here at UMB. And from our 3 talks, you just heard some of those things, but I want to add a couple of things to them. First of all, please keep your finger on what's critical to success in your local level, in your department, your unit, your lab, your whatever. Focus on the things that you directly control and be a trusted member of your team and do your part to help keep UMB healthy. Don't get distracted by rhetoric or external influences. It's so easy to lose your focus. While you're in this period of uncertainty, make sure you take stock of yourself and of your university. Ask yourself questions. Questions about what we can do better. How do we protect junior faculty? How do we improve graduate and professional education? How do we make our research programs more robust? In the current environment, we can still improve. And by the way, remember that this is still the greatest country in the world. Yes, and I really believe that. And yes, there's confusing policies at times. There's conflicting messages and court decisions at times, but it is my country. We cannot let the people of this country forget that it is universities like UMB that help make our country great, educating professional and graduate students, our expertise in biomedical sciences, the social sciences, and the understanding of the law, which I've learned a lot about. For without the rule of law, democracy dies. We must remain focused on our mission and share our story every day. We have an obligation to keep this country the greatest country in the world. The lights will come back on. You'll see. In the meanwhile, please use your expertise, your intuition, your dedication to serve all of UMB and all of Maryland. And of course, continue to apply gentle pressure in just the right places. You already know how to do this. The improvements that we do now will serve us well when the lights come back on. We will emerge all the stronger. Thank you for being here today.